Hi guys, it's Eric Cressey. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the contraindications to doing any kind of overhead work, whether it's a snatch, a push jerk, traditional overhead pressing, whatever it may be. Typically we see a lot of people that want to jump right in and do the Olympic lifts, and obviously a clean or a high pull, anything like that isn't going to require any kind of overhead movement. But if we want to get out and start to snatch, we see a lot of people that jump right into it and they physically aren't prepared to get to the positions that they need. And in short, they really aren't able to get that full shoulder flexion that it takes to actually get in a good position. So what we see in these people in many cases is the catch position. They have a big forward head posture. They have kind of that big humeral anterior glide where their arms wind up behind their body and their low back is heavily extended instead of catching it in a really good stable position. So I want to go through a couple of tests that we use with our guys to make sure that they're actually cleared for doing this. So George is actually a really good example because he has pretty limited shoulder flexion. So we're going to show you if he lays on the table here. We're actually going to slide his head all the way up to the top here. When we test for length of the lats, we want to make sure that the hips and the knees are flexed. So we're making sure to flatten his lower back out so that he can't compensate to get range by just arching his back to get his arms up overhead. So we're maintaining neutral position of his core. We're just going to take his arms right up, have him nice and relaxed, and just let him drop down all the way, nice and free and easy. Let's see how much range he actually has. So you can see he's got a ton of stiffness that he needs to overpower. George's got a military background, did a lot of pull-ups, and as a result, he's really kind of pulled down aggressive with his lats. So you look at a guy like this, and he's probably not a great candidate for doing a ton of overhead work, okay? So we actually stand him up. The next thing we're going to look at is how does that work when we're actually competing against gravity. So we put him on his back, and as he goes through this stuff, on a test like that, gravity is actually helping him to get full shoulder flexion. So what happens when we actually ask him to compete against gravity? So we're going to go through shoulder flexion with the thumbs up. Come on up overhead. So as he goes, he's going nice and slow, and he's trying to work his way through this. You can see he's wincing a little bit just because it does feel tight. So that's probably his end range right there. He's lacking in full shoulder flexion. So in a pattern like this, he's probably not a good candidate for getting overhead. What is interesting though is it actually improved a little bit when we got him into standing, which is actually kind of counterintuitive, but what that means is he's probably developed good core strength in the front to keep his ribs down and allow him to get some scapular stability and get those lats to relax as he works his way up against gravity. Okay? The biggest test that we use for people is we'll have him go into a back to wall shoulder flexion test. So he's going to step right back to the wall. Okay? From this position we're going to have him set up about 6 or 8 inches away from the wall with his feet. He's going to flatten his lower back out, okay? He's going to get his head back to the wall, make a double chin. So effectively we're taking him not just to neutral, but even to a slightly flexed position by flattening him from his head down to his hips. And from there we're just going to see how does that back to wall shoulder flexion work. So let's go ahead and do it on your own, okay? So when he gets up to about that position, we control for that core. It's very, very limited, okay? What we notice about George that's interesting though is when he gets a little bit of a scapular elevation pattern, meaning we use those upper traps to kind of counteract that really aggressive downward pull that the lats create. We kind of get those lats to relax, and you'll see that his range of motion actually improves quite a bit. So as we start to come up, let's turn these guys on just a little bit. When you get to about shoulder height, we're just going to work our way up while keeping that low back flat. What you notice, he might not get all the way to the wall, but he can definitely get a little bit closer. So effectively what we've done is we've helped him to kind of be guided up into that scapular upward rotation to overpower some of that stiffness that's really holding him down. So if you get good anterior core control, you work hard on length in your lats, and you work on getting some scapular upward rotation, you're usually be in a great position. With that said, we're going to give you another video that talks you through some of our favorite exercises for actually working on some of these problems that we see so that you can get to snatching, jerking, and overhead pressing in a safe and effective manner.